It's important to put yourself in uncomfortable situations because a lot of the conversations we have with partners have to be uncomfortable to get to the right balance of partnership that's good for both sides. If you're not having a hard conversation, you're probably not doing anything that's impactful enough. You're probably not really building trust.
When you're working with these partners and you're developing that relationship, are you using any agents or AI on the back end to actually develop those relationships?
It's really a good question. Yes, we use AI. A lot of the AI, frankly, that we'll use will be to help us frame up. Ego is important. You want people to be confident. You want them to believe in themselves. But when you start having people who have an ego that is above the collective ego of the we and the team, it's just harder to get things done.
What's one thing your kids have taught you that you wish more people understood in your role?
Oh man, I love this question. I love your research. The advice I give them is Nick? Yes.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm fired up. Day 3 of Dreamforce. I've got, enough energy for this one. This is a highlight of the day.
It's my last one as well. I'm hoping I can make it highlight. We'll see. Talking of highlights.
Yes.
2006. You used to be a varsity football coach for wide receivers, as I understand it.
That's true.
How has that experience influenced your approach to developing individual talent and maintaining cohesive teams?
Love the question. So the background on that is I played college football at UC Davis, and I played up until my senior year. I had an injury, got hit in the head pretty hard, and realized I had no chance to play in the NFL, wasn't going to make it a pro career, and decided not to use my redshirt senior year, but I wasn't done with the game. So I graduated that summer, went to live with a friend in San Diego, and was studying for the GMAT because I decided I wanted to go get my MBA and thought, I want to still be around the game of football. And so I went to all the local high schools and pitched my talent and, the recent experience I had. And oddly enough, I played defensive back in college, but I was asked to coach wide receivers for an amazing high school called Torrey Pines High School in San Diego. And so it was my first time coaching wide receivers. I hadn't played wide receiver since I was in high school myself. But, defending wide receivers gave me a lot of context on the right way to coach it. So I'll never forget the moment that I had a player who was undersized, under talent, but wanted so badly to be a star on the team and was one of the hardest workers that I had in my group. And the first time he got a chance to score a touchdown and the look in his eyes and the way his parents came up to me after the game, I realized then how much better it feels to help someone else achieve amazing things. And, I, of course, had some experience with big plays and myself, my personal wins felt good, but that was like another level. And I think that clicked something for me, the importance of being able to get someone to achieve more than maybe they knew they could have or believed they could have, or help them realize an outcome that they wanted so badly. That still carries with me today and how I manage my team and my people, right? I try to find the talent and the things that people maybe aren't as comfortable developing into and helping them get there. It's still fires me up. And so I think that, plus I'm a little bit known for being a bit rah-rah, kind of like the coach style. I get back into my locker room roots every now and then when I try to fire my team up.
Coming with the JVL speed.
Yeah, I can't help it. But, there's something to be said for vibes. And, where I played at UC Davis, we were always a little undersized. We were always, not the team that was expected to win the big games, but we had so much camaraderie and trust in each other, and the vibes were always really strong that we outperformed because of it. And so I just think there's something to establishing the right vibes in a team where there's trust, there's confidence, there's the belief in each other that, like, when you do that right, on top of like helping people individually do things great, you can have an awesome team. So that's kind of how I approach it. I definitely bring the coaching mentality to how I lead teams today.
I'm curious how much that plays into how you hire people now. I've been speaking to a lot of people this week on like what's important in that interview, like what are they trying to see? And I'm curious because it seems as if like technical proficiency isn't as important. It's more so like enthusiasm and curiosity. And it seems like that's kind of aligned with how you've evolved.
Totally. So I have a couple of core values that I always instill in my team in the way that they're doing panel interviews and screening before we get the discussion that I may be having with an individual we're going to hire. One of the first is low ego. You've got to be able to put the team before yourself or the company before yourself and do what's right. We work in partnerships, and if you always try to win in partnerships, there's not that right balance of win-win for both, and you can get to outcomes that are one-sided and the partnership won't last. So I really look for people who are low ego. I really look for people who are high curiosity. You mentioned curiosity because those are the people that are, really driven to understand. And again, in the world that we are in with partnerships right now and all the news, everybody's getting into AI, everybody's building agents. You have to be thoughtful about being curious and what the other company is trying to do and how do you find that balance of win-win, not just assume that the way Salesforce is doing it is the same way one of our partners is approaching it. And, you got to think deeply about that. So I think intellectual curiosity is something that's really important. And then we actually have a team value in my team we just call it grit. So it's hard to suss grit out in an interview, but I definitely like to look at people's background and understand, what was the thing that at maybe some point in time they got knocked down and got back up, or what was the really difficult thing that they accomplished. And when I can get the balance of, really low ego team players that are curious and hungry and have that grit and they can push through tough times, those are the people that are my all-time favorites to hire.
I want to put you on the spot for a second.
Yeah.
Imagine I'm applying for a job with you. What would be one question you would ask me that would try and encapsulate all of that?
Walk me through the hardest thing you've achieved in the last 2 years at work, and how did you get there? If you give me an answer that you say me a lot or I a lot, it's concerning for me. When I hear team, when I hear upward influence, when I hear bringing in stakeholders, when I hear asking for help, when I hear proactivity around becoming an expert or learning to help solve something, those are the things that I get excited about. I really will try to watch out for hero culture. Someone that just says, I did this and I found this and I won this. They may have great accolades, but sometimes you put people like that onto a team and they're not quite ready to roll with the team.
I want to dive more into your role in partnerships. So obviously you're working with a bunch of different companies from Expedia to Workday, IBM, everyone, right? And I kind of look back through your work history and I see that you spent some time down in Buenos Aires. And I'm wondering how that influenced your understanding of different cultures and if that had any effect on how you approach partnerships in general.
I love the question. That was probably the most formidable time of my life. Because I was playing a college sport, I didn't get the opportunity to do a study abroad, which was something I really wanted to do. And I had been studying Spanish all the way through middle school, through college, and just had this desire to want to go live somewhere. That was shortly after my San Diego experience. And through a family connection, I got offered an internship to go down there and work for a great company called Spencer Stuart. And I basically was placed into the office in Buenos Aires with the responsibility of translating documents from Spanish to English so they could be sent back to headquarters. So I got to sit in some really cool meetings with executives and hear how the conversations were happening with the intent to put that into English context and send it back to the global headquarters. But what was also great about that experience is I lived with the head of that office and his family, and we didn't speak English. And so, they could speak English, but the intent was for me to learn and get better at my Spanish skills. And I'd never done that full immersion. So outside of Wednesday nights, which we made English Wednesdays at dinner, it was full Spanish the whole time. And when I first got there, they've got a unique accent in Argentina.
It's the
The sh. Yeah, they love it. And it sounds beautiful, but I wasn't used to it. So I couldn't understand anything when I first got there. And I remember thinking to myself, man, did I make a mistake? I just signed up to be here for 6 months and I thought I was good. I got a minor in this. But slowly but surely, I learned a ton. And the family I lived with, there were 6 boys. You were talking about rugby earlier. Most of them played rugby. One was on the Argentinian national team. And I became the 7th living in this house. And we became almost like brothers. And so, going back to your question on what did I learn from that and how is it applicable, I think I learned the value of just throwing yourself into something first. And, sometimes we're going to have to take risks, especially in the partnerships that we're looking at in the current landscape when everybody's thinking everything's competitive. You got to go put yourself in a conversation in a room and just be open to either maybe not having the right perspective or making a mistake and learning. I also think it just gave me a lot more confidence in myself too, to know that I could do that, where it's like a little bit of the point I brought up earlier of getting knocked down, this wasn't a scenario where I was knocked down, but it was one where I was definitely uncomfortable. And it's important to put yourself in uncomfortable situations because a lot of the conversations we have with partners have to be uncomfortable to get to the right balance of a partnership that's good for both sides. If you're not having a hard conversation, you're probably not doing anything that's impactful enough, and you're probably not really building trust. There's got to be a little bit of friction, or the idea is probably not big enough.
Yeah, it's interesting. I spent some time in Guatemala learning
Yeah.
Spanish as well.
Yeah.
And then traveled all over Latin America, and it was like every single country that I went to was a different version of Spanish. So I was having to relearn it.
Yeah.
I think Argentina was the most aggressive in terms of me just getting there and having no idea what anyone was saying. So yeah, I understand where you're coming from.
It's a beautiful country. I've been back. So the 6 of the brothers that I referenced, I've been to 5 of the 6 weddings, and many of them were back there. So my wife and I have been back many times, and there's one left, and we're hopeful that, he asked the question pretty soon, and we've got a trip down to Argentina we can bring our kids to.
There you are. Are they mostly in Buenos Aires, or are they up in Cordoba, Mendoza?
Yeah, they're mostly in Buenos Aires. There's one that lives out where the lake is. I'm blanking on the name of the lake. They're going to give me a hard time if they list Bariloche.
Yeah.
They're out by Bariloche, and then there's one in New York and one in Europe. So they kind of spread out, but everybody comes back for the wedding. So it's like a reunion, and they're like my second family.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I want to bring this into the present day. I'm looking through your LinkedIn, and I'm looking through all the posts from people within Salesforce, like the different companies that you're working with, AWS, IBM, Workday, like a million different countries. It seems as if like every single day that changes with another partnership announced. This might seem like a silly question, but kind of talk me through like what does that process look like from start to finish? How do you make that introduction to the point where you close that deal?
It's interesting. There's not one formula to it. I'd say there's 2 general baselines or entry points, if you will, for how we start thinking about these. One will be customer driven. We'll just start hearing from the market that customers are expecting some sort of integrated experience or a better together story, or a reason why using Salesforce could be a lot easier, less friction, more valuable if it involves another company. Those ideas oftentimes hit our team's desk. The other scenario is when we think about market strategy, sometimes we're going to be intentional about parts of our stack or parts of our product that we know don't make sense for us to own or build ourselves. There's already a leader in that space, or maybe there's a piece of the application, or even some of these AI models are great examples. Like, we're not trying to be a large language model company for everyone, right? So there's some amazing companies that do that really well. We should go work with them. So those are the 2 places they usually start from. And we try to get as quickly as possible to that customer context. And so even if it's something that we're starting more organically with our own product strategy, we try to have the conversation with the partner in the context of why this is going to be good for a shared customer. And then from there, build out the framework of what does the product plan need to look like in terms of who's building what do the timelines need to be in terms of respective resourcing, how do we think about go-to-market? Is there going to be an implication in how we need to educate our sellers? How do we sell together? So those are all the things that, depending on the type of partnership, that we have to think about and consider. But usually, as long as it's rooted in a customer demand, or it's rooted in our market strategy, and we connect it to customer demand, we've got a great starting point. Like, they all kind of start there, and then they ebb and flow depending on general dynamics and the existing relationship we may or may not have. And you always have to have a compelling event. So Dreamforce oftentimes ends up being a great backstop, where if we're having some of these conversations, we say, look, it's got to be done by this time, or else we're going to miss the big show. So this is kind of like our Super Bowl week, because a lot of the work that the team's doing, everyone in my org is working so hard with partners to just showcase the new things we're going to do and land it so we can talk about it here.
Yeah, it's interesting. I spoke to Ariel Kelman.
Yeah.
I spoke to Mia Jordan, Nancy Hsu. I spoke to Ryan Gavin as well. And something that comes across everyone is how customer-centric you are in your approach.
Yeah.
I think something that's been talked a lot about at Dreamforce is how you are partnering with people to deliver this agentic workflow for our customers. What I'm curious about is the back end, all right? So when you're working with these partners and you're developing that relationship, Is it still very, very much like a world of handshakes and getting to know people person to person? Or are you using any agents or AI on the back end to actually develop those relationships?
Really a good question. I still think any deal that's being done in partnerships is going to happen through relationships and trust. Maybe there's a world in the future where AI agents are going to do partnership business development and handshake and get a deal done on their own.
Yeah.
But I think, again, to do that, you have to hit a friction point. You have to hit a place where you've taken the idea or the concept too far to the discomfort of the other side, or vice versa. Maybe the partner has an idea that's too far for us. You've got to figure out a way to meet in the middle. And so, yes, we use AI. A lot of the AI, frankly, that we'll use will be to help us frame up uh, best positioning, because some of these things are sensitive in the way that we're thinking about Agentforce and what we want to do with a given partner and what maybe their AI strategy is. So I'll tell you, we oftentimes will put in the prompt of, I lead the Salesforce strategic partnerships team. Salesforce and XYZ company are thinking about this. How would you position this in a mutually beneficial way as you're kicking off a biz dev cycle with the partner? And it's actually pretty powerful, the kind of ideas you'll get back and the way to think about that balance of the conversation. So definitely writing, creation of, sometimes we'll create like a joint press release so we can start with the end in mind. It's a great way to use AI to say, okay, here's the scope of what we're going to do. Help us write the end state and how you'd talk about it with customers. So then you can put that in front of the partner and work backwards from that. So, those are the types of things that we're doing right now, still very much aligned to creating text, creating positioning. It's also fun to use AI to help you with positioning the way you'll create a partnership tagline.
Yeah.
And give you some like good creative ideas when you're just stuck and you're too in the details. So there's all kinds of cool tools, I'll call them, but we're not quite using it with like agentic partner relationship management yet. Maybe we'll get there, but not quite.
But out of left field here.
Yeah.
Why do you think you're good at your job?
I got a great team. I got great leadership. I work at a great company. It's a lot easier when you can show up to a company with a base of customers like the ones we have with an idea and you're well received because you've got the relevancy, you've got successful customers, to your point. You've got an amazing CEO like Mark and our leadership team that are really well respected in the industry. I think that kind of like trickles down. We also do a really good job of setting vision for the company and making clear what the priorities are. And so, you mentioned a number of our leaders you had a chance to speak with. We have to get them on board with the things we're doing with partners too. And as long as it's aligned with what we've agreed to go do top down, it's actually a lot easier to go get things done. And so I think it's that combination of like, we've got the right alignment, we've got the top down vision, you've got the ability to get yourself in the room. I don't take for granted the fact we're not a startup because I talk to startups all the time. It's hard for them to get an audience with a big tech company right now. And then, you've got great people, and that's still the most important thing.
Yeah, it's interesting the way you answered that. You immediately went to we rather than I.
Yeah.
Which I don't feel as if it's very common, but in my conversation with Ariel, he said the same thing as well. As like when he's hiring, ego cannot be a thing. It can't exist.
Yeah.
Why is that so destructive?
Ego is important. You want people to be confident. You want them to believe in themselves. But when you start having people who have an ego that is above the collective ego of the we and the team, it's just harder to get things done. And, we're intentionally kind of a scrappy team. People often tell me like, I can't believe how small your team is given all the things you guys work on. But that's an advantage for us sometimes because we trust each other. We have the right people and we can go run at things pretty hard. So I like having a small, scrappy team because that we mentality, when it's there, allows us to just be on the same page. Like some of the partnerships we announced this week, we were working on in the run up to this event on, group Slack threads where everybody was taking a place in the finalization of some of these deals and getting the PR ready and working with our comms team. And like the amount of swarming that happens, if you have too big of an org and someone who wants to be a me person instead of a we person, it's just hard. So, we really embrace the we not me mentality and run at that.
With your role, I imagine that you're connected to a lot of different departments. You're speaking to ops, you're speaking to marketing, product, whoever. I've got a hypothetical for you. Say, for example, you're 21 right now, in this day and age in 2025. You've just graduated college, university, whatever you want to call it. jumping into Salesforce specifically, what role would you want? What department would you want to be in, and why?
I love that question. I've been thinking about that context a lot this week, it's even aligned to some of the stuff we announced with OpenAI, and why I'm so excited about that because of the paradigm that I believe ChatGPT is going to be introducing for the enterprise. We can get back to that. Distracted me for a second. But I've been thinking to myself, like, if I had been in college and getting out right now, how much I probably would be using some of these Gen AI tools, because none of that stuff existed when I was in school, but gosh, it'd be a great tutor or help. But I think I always give this advice to people. The first job out of college, get as close to the customer as possible. So I would recommend someone go to a sales role or a customer success role where, the highest percentage of your time can be customer facing, because you get the feedback on, what the customers expect, what they want. And when you're close to the customer, you need to operate as the bridge between that customer and the company. And so you inherently get visibility into how all the other functions work. And you can kind of figure out maybe where there are places that are more interesting for you than others. Not everybody's meant to be a salesperson. Not everybody's meant to be a customer-facing consultant. But, doing that work, I think, is the best way to figure out your value in the organization. And, I generally believe that no organization is going to be successful without good sellers and good customer-facing people, because that's where the revenue comes from. You got to have customers that trust you. You got to have customers that want to invest in your product. So go be customer-facing.
Yeah, interesting. Another parallel comes a lot in these conversations that I've had. I come from a sales role as well. My first job when I was 16 was working in car phone warehouse, doing 5 years of phone sales as well. So I think it gives you the chops to speak to people.
Yeah.
And I recommend that to everyone, even if it's like a setter role, it's online sales, whatever you do, and just like get in sales.
And I think it's so much more important now. And it was interesting. My daughter, who's 10, has started thinking about college, which is kind of crazy because she's only 10. I don't think I was thinking about that at that age. But she said to me the other day, "Dad, I want to go to NYU." And I said, "Well, that's interesting. Why NYU?" She goes, "It's the best dance program." And I have to think, 5 years ago, I probably would have said, it's going to be tough to make a career as a dancer. But, if you think about where a lot of this work is going and where the automation is going to be, maybe the arts are going to be like a totally different place where the future of entertainment and the things that people want to lean into that much more will be, better because it's human. I thought, there is going to be a whole new shift to the way that people want to spend time in human ways, and just, tying that back to your point on how to have a conversation, how to have high EQ. I think these are the skills that, as AI is augmenting maybe some of the medial tasks in our life and some of the things that are helping us fill the gaps or the cracks in our work, the people that have high EQ, high social skills, deep in the arts, can do things that computers can't, or maybe struggle to do, are going to be the differentiators of those enterprises down the road.
I also think even if AI gets to the point where what it can produce in terms of dancing or podcasting, whatever else, is as good as a human, I think humans will still prefer humans because they know that it comes from real life experience, and rather than something that's been created via a data set.
I completely agree. I mean, that's the imperfection of humanity that is kind of cool, where, we all recognize that no one's perfect, and we all recognize that people make mistakes. And, when you have AI that can spin up a perfect song or a perfect movie or a perfect thing that's like, just feels a little too perfect, it doesn't feel human. So I don't know. I think it's going to be a fascinating shift with the arts in general. Music, we were talking earlier about my love of music, and I don't think I'm ever going to want to go see a robot band. I want to see the guy up on stage with his guitar, or the woman playing the keys, and like see their passion behind the music.
Yeah.
And when you don't see that, it just doesn't connect to the person in the same way.
Yeah. I think following that one thread further, I think the last true moat will just be experience itself.
Yeah, it's a great point.
See, like the best thing that you can do as a human is actually go out and experience things. That's our only moat now.
Yeah, that's a better way of saying kind of what I was thinking in this conversation with my daughter is, maybe going to see someone perform like that and dance, if that's where she goes to take her career, like that's going to be a differentiated experience and the most valuable thing you can do, because the rest is going to feel, automated. I don't know, but I agree with you. It's the moat.
You're quite public about your family, not in any kind of crazy way, but I just noticed in your Twitter bio, it says, I'm still calling it Twitter at this point, it says dad of 2 wild ones.
Yes.
What's one thing like your kids have taught you that you wish more people understood in your role?
Oh man, I love this question. I love your research. This is like firing me up. That's a really good question. I think something I think about often is the advice I give them
Mm.
is often very different than the way I think about myself. And you tell your kids to be brave. The two words I tell my kids every day when they leave to go to school, I say, "Be great."
Mm.
That's like they know that's my motto is, "I love you kids. Go off to school. Be great." But I don't sometimes think to myself in the same way if I'm doubting myself or I'm second guessing something, or it's like so easy to tell one of my kids before a soccer game or a football game to not be nervous, just be confident, go get it. Um, those are things that I think are a lot easier to say as a dad, and then you sometimes forget to remind yourself.
Mm.
And so that's just something that's stuck with me, especially as my kids are getting a little bit older, and I'm starting to see their insecurities to have to remind myself like, hey, you're doing such a intentional job of trying to help them with theirs or trying to guide them in a way, but you don't talk to yourself like that. So I don't know. That's something that stands out to me. And I think the same mentality of if I'm a little tired or it's day 3 at Dreamforce and I had a great time at Metallica and I'm feeling a little like I could use some sleep, I can use the motto to myself, be great, keep going. Like, just get through it. You're almost done.
We're nearly there, so I'll go one more
I
question
love
for
it.
this. I naturally incline the same way. I have tattooed on the inside of one of my arms, "Be what you admire,"
Love it.
because
That's
I
cool.
find it really hard to treat other people or treat myself the same way that I treat other people, because I always treat them fairly and don't treat myself fairly.
Yeah.
I think it's a product of having high standards for yourself, and that it's easy to put yourself down for things.
Yeah.
So it's the same inclination that I have, and it is good to have that reminder of it. That's why I have it
I
tattooed
love
on
it.
the arm.
That's great.
All of my guests, I ask them the same last question. Some talking about it in respect to work, some talk in respect to family. You just kind of take the question however you want to.
Okay.
I would encourage you to take 5-10 seconds before answering.
Great.
Why do you do what you do?
I think I'm going to bring it back to some of the things we talked about and how I think about hiring. Um, I am motivated by achievement, but I'm motivated by achievement in team settings. So this empowers me to still feel like I'm a part of a team. I like doing hard things. I like the gratification of doing something that was perceived to be difficult, getting there and celebrating it. And when you work in partnerships, there's a sense of whether I'm working with Amazon or I'm working with Google or OpenAI or Anthropic or some of the partners that we just did a bunch of great work with this week, the feeling of, hey, we're going to have to get two really big companies around a really important moment in technology where we all have our own play in the space to agree on how we're going to create value together, talk about it in a way we're both excited. We're going to tell the world about it and then get customers excited about this together and make sure everybody feels good about it. Like, that's hard. And we do it all the time. And so that kind of fires me up. And then, you asked the question about thinking about family too, is it motivates me for my kids to look up to me and be proud of what I'm doing. My wife actually used to work at Salesforce too. So I know that she can look at what I'm doing and she knows the week that I'm having, and I know she's proud. And so it's that combination of like achievement, doing hard things, and having the pride from the family of doing work that matters and making a difference. So I think all those factors kind of play into it. But I didn't think I was going to stay at Salesforce for as long as I have, and we continue to evolve, and my ability to have those three things just keeps being met. So after 12 years, here I am, and it's been great. Best Dreamforce yet.
Nick, thank you for your time.
Thank you. This was awesome. I loved it. This is the best part of my day so far. Thank you.
Dude, I'm happy to hear it. Andy.